Alright, this fourth page is trying to find two triangles that are congruent by the given postulate that they tell you. So this first one's saying side, angle, side. What you'll notice is that even in the postulate you see two angles surrounding one side. That means that we need to find the two angles that have two angles and a side in between them. Well, this one does, so we're going to circle it. This one has two angles, but the side is not between the two angles. So this is not congruent to this. This one, however, is congruent to this because we have the two same type of angles and we have the side in between, so we'd say yes. That are my two triangles that are congruent by angle, side, angle. Circle the two triangles that are congruent by side, angle, side. Well, this first one, side, angle, side. So we can say that one's one of them. This one is angle, side, side. We can't spell bad words. Obviously, this one doesn't work. This one, however, does, because it has a side, angle, and then a side. Next one, angle, angle, side. You notice in this is an angle and an angle, but the side's in between. As we talked about up here, that is angle, side, angle. So obviously this can't be it, which leaves these other two right here as the only possible choices, as angle, angle, side. Angle, angle, side. Last, circle the two triangles that are congruent by side, side, side. Well, all three of them have the one tick mark. All three of them have the two tick marks, but these two are the only ones with three tick marks. This one has a second two tick mark, which would make this nice isosceles triangle, but it's not congruent to these two right here. So these two are the only ones that are congruent by side, side, side. Okay. Now we move on to proofs. Proofs of triangles are the hardest part of this chapter. Luckily on the test, all you'll be doing is fill in the blanks. You won't have to do an entire proof by yourself, but still, proof's a little bit difficult. Alright, so whenever we have something that says given, it's usually the first thing. Sometimes it can be later in the proof, but for the most part, it should be the first thing that they do, is you have to write what the given is. So in this case, I'm going to write exactly what the given is, and that is what it tells us it is. It's telling us that angle A is congruent to angle B. Also, that E is the midpoint of DC. Okay? E is the midpoint of DC. So let's actually go over our triangle and first label the stuff that they give us. They tell us that angle A is congruent to angle B, so we're going to show that angle A is congruent to angle B. Then it tells us E is the midpoint of DC. Well, we can't really do anything with that, so we're just going to let it go until the next step. But we labeled everything that tells us that we are told is congruent, and then we move on. The next part says DE and CE. So DE's here and CE's here. These are the two halves that make up CD, right? Well, we learned in the given that E is the midpoint of DC. Since E is the midpoint of DC, it breaks DC into two parts, two halves. And because of that, we know that these two halves are congruent. So technically, why these are two congruent is because it's a property of what a midpoint is. Or as I like to say it, it's part of the definition of what a midpoint is. The definition of a midpoint. The next one, so let's actually first label that. So we know that this is going to be congruent to this. Because of the definition of midpoint, it cut this in half, so there's two congruent sides. We've got an angle. We've got sides. Last but not least, we got to get vertical angles. So, vertical angles. Remember, are these two angles right here? Now we got to remember how to label these. We always start with an outer point, which is A. So we're going to say angle A, inner point E, outer point D is congruent to B, angle B, E, C. So we have the two vertical angles that are marked, we have the two sides that are marked, and we got the two angles right here that are marked. Last but not least, it tells us that these two triangles are now congruent. So we got to figure out, why are these two triangles congruent? Well, on the test, if you do it step by step as I showed you, where you actually label as you go, you should be able to see it easily. We have an angle here, we have an angle here, and we have a side here. So technically, this is congruent by angle, angle, side. If you need help, just keep asking in class. I will try to help you. Remember, the test is next Wednesday. Go on to page 4 if you need it. Otherwise, hopefully you study. Thank you.